So today we're going to take a look at ModuleWithProviders. It's an interface in Angular core. And although you might not know about ModuleWithProviders, you undoubtedly have been using it. If you're involved in Angular and you're working on Angular apps, it's almost certain that, unbeknownst to you, maybe, you're using the ModuleWithProviders interface. If you've ever seen libraries, Angular libraries, that have a static function called forRoot or forChild, well then almost for certain you're using the ModuleWithProviders, because those functions, forRoot or forChild, generally return a ModuleWithProviders. It's an object. You can see it here. It has two properties. One is ngModule and the other one is providers. I'm going to go into that a little later in this tutorial, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew what you were getting into. This is what we're going to be talking about. But to really show the power of that interface and how it works in Angular and what it buys us, what it buys us, right? What's the advantage of using it? We're actually going to implement a little service. Right? A little bit, it's a little library, I guess you could say, right? And it's a logger service. So at the same time in this tutorial, you'll see how to implement a very simple logger service. So it's a 2-for-1 kind of thing, right? You're going to learn about ModuleWithProviders and you're going to see how to implement a very small library for logging inside your application. Why would you want a logger service? Instead of just using good old-fashioned console.log or console.warn or error in your code. The main reason for that is more control. If you're working on an actual application that goes into production, you probably want to have the ability to control how much stuff gets logged to the console when you're in production versus when you're developing on your machine, right? So when you're developing on your machine, you probably want to see everything, right? You want to see every kind of log level, every debug, log, warn, errors. You want to see everything. But in production, though, you probably don't want to get, to have everything logged to the console. You might just want the errors, for instance, to get logged to the console for performance reasons, and also, maybe because you don't want to, you don't want the users to be able to hit F12 and then get access to a bunch of information they shouldn't really have access to. All right, so that's the reason why, one of the reasons why you wouldn't want to have your own logger service. Now, what we're going to do is we're not going to start from scratch in terms of the Angular app. We're going to fork. Actually, I've done this already. If you want to follow along and kind of code along, I'm going to put the link in the description. But we're going to fork from an example app from the Angular team itself. I think they call it ngModule example. The purpose of this example app is just to show, I guess, to showcase kind of like lazy loading of modules. So for instance, if we look here, we've got a contact feature module, an items feature module, and a customers feature module. And let's look at the routing module here. No, that's the one for items. Let's look at the app level one. And here we go, right? If you're familiar with lazy loading, you can see that this is what's going on here. We're lazy loading the customers and items module. If you're not familiar with lazy loading in Angular, I encourage you to look at the documentation. There's some pretty good explanation of what that is. Maybe just a short explanation. So Angular is a single-page application. It means that when you when you browse to the application's URL, you hit the server. The browser hits the server, and it gets in return an HTML file with one or many JavaScript files that contain your app. Now, by default, if you don't use lazy loading of modules and feature modules, it will load the entire app, all the components, all the services, everything, right? And that can take a while if it's a big app. When you use lazy loading of modules, and you split your app in feature modules like we have here, then the browser will only load whatever is necessary for the app to start up, right? In the first view it needs to show. Afterwards, it'll only request whatever it needs from the server as you navigate to those different feature modules. So let's clear the console here and let me show you what I mean. If we refresh here, you can see that the customer service instance is created. So we're in the customer's route, the customer feature module, and the customer service has been created. Great. Now if we move to contact, now the contact service gets created. You see, and if we go to items, then it gets loaded into memory, it gets created. And now all three are in memory. So if I go back to customers, it doesn't get created again. It's already available. No need to instantiate a new instance of the service. No need to hit the server to go get the files. We've got everything we need. All right, that's that kind of the short version of what lazy loading of feature modules does for us. Okay, and now let's take a look at our logger service that we want to build together. Actually, let's do that. Let's not take a look because we're going to do that from scratch. So what I'm going to do, let's see, let's create a lib folder at the same level as app. And okay, inside this, so we're making a logger library. So let's do another folder. We're going to call it logger. All right, and here. So let's start real simple. And remember that the purpose, what we're working towards, is understanding, what ModuleWithProviders is gonna do for us, and where you might want to use it and why you might want to use it sometimes. Okay, so logger. Let's start with our logger service. Oops. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I'm using StackBlitz here, so it's straight in the browser. So unfortunately, you don't get the CLI, generate command, and I'm going to have to do some stuff from scratch. So that'll be a nice little exercise to see if I remember how. Okay, I guess I don't have to click on it. Stay there. Logger service.ts. Right, see, blank page. So at injectable is the decorator that we need if we want the dependency injection to work for us. And normally in the recent versions of Angular, you can straight in that decorator, and that's actually the default. And what is recommended is to provide your services for root, right? So provided in, if I remember correctly, and then it's just no. I think it's just root. Provided in root. Yeah. And then we can just class. We're going to call it logger service. And okay, so that's a good start. Now I need to import this. There we go. Okay. Everybody's happy. Great. So let's keep it simple and have 3 levels of logging. We're going to start with the highest level of logging, which is info. That's the highest one we'll use. And it'll be nice to have, just a public function that we're going to use for that. That receives a string. We're just going to call it message. So we're keeping it simple here for the purposes of this tutorial. Now we're going to, okay, so let's think ahead a little bit here. The purpose why we're doing this is we want more control, right? We want more control over what gets logged. So we need a way to tell the logger service, hey, you know, we need a way to configure it, basically. We need a way to tell the logger service, you should be just outputting, you know, logs of whatever level I tell you. So let's get the constructor to take a log level, and you know, there's different ways to do this, but I think I'm gonna go with an enum that we're gonna call log level. Yep, let's go with that. So we're gonna need to create that. Doesn't exist yet. So let's make, yeah, we're gonna need to use that outside of our service, right? Because we're configuring it outside of it. So okay, so const, no, not const. It's an enum. Export enum log level. All right, and it's going to take 3 levels, as I was saying. The okay, so the lowest level would be error. So that's going to be 0 or 1. I can't remember where it starts. Does it start at 0 or 1? We could, you know what? We can tell TypeScript what we want. And okay, and then 1. And then we don't need to do it, it'll just increment from there. And so 1 will be 1, and info. All right, so those are the 3 ones. So info will be 2. Okay, now let's give us some space here. Okay, so this will be info warn, also takes a message of type string, returns void. I like to be explicit with my function returns, but you know, TypeScript can infer the return types. You could technically not put it. I like to do it, but it's all good. Error message type string, return void. We're dealing with logging, it's all side effects. And we're not testing anything, so. Okay, now these functions, you know, I could have an if statement in each one to make sure that it's the proper log level before we're just going to defer to the actual console, right? We're going to delegate to the console. But it would make more sense to use, right, if we try to stay dry a little bit. And let's call this, let's call it log width, yeah, log width, and then the level. There we go, log level. That works. Takes in the message, string, also returns nothing, void. Yeah, okay, and this is where we get our if statement here. So if our level is lower or equal to whatever we configured the service to be at, then we can go ahead and log. We're just going to use a switch statement that takes in a log level, the log level actually. There we go. And what are our cases here? We've got case log level is, let's start with the lowest, I guess, which is error, right? Case log level, missing, what am I missing here? Oh, capital letter, right, okay. Case log level error, then just, I'm using return instead of break, because, you know, one less line, but you could use a break instead if you wanted to. And now we're delegating to the console. So if it's error, console has an error level, that's what we're going to use. We're just going to pass in the message. Okay. And then another case would be log level. Actually, you know what? Yeah, let's just do this. What is it? Shift Alt, arrow down in VS Code. And we can just change that to, let's do, I don't know, Warn. Right, log level Warn. And this is Warn. And this is info. This is also info. All right, good. Control S to save. Oh, and it formats it automatically. Great. Now all we need to do here is call that log width, which takes in the level, right? So log level here is info, and just pass in the message. That's it. I can probably just copy that in here and just change that to what are we dealing with? Warn. And same thing here. This will be error. Great. So we've got a pretty good skeleton of a logging service here already. Okay, and as we can see, we need to pass in some configuration to our logger service. We need to tell it, you know, the log level. There's another thing we could do. If I know this works in Google Chrome, there's a big chance that it might work in other browsers as well. Just to illustrate the point a little bit more. So let's take in another configuration here that we might want, and that is color. All right, we're gonna take a string here. You may not notice, but in Chrome at least, the console you can basically style with CSS whatever shows up in the console. Here's an example. Console.log. How does it work again? I think it's like this. C, and then do I need a space? Just look over. I think I've got an example. Yeah. I think I need a space. All right, so this is a test. All right. Then as a second parameter, you pass in your basically your CSS string. So in our case, we would want to just change the color to I don't know, green. Let's make it green. See what happens. Hey, look at that, right? It's green. I think you can do a lot more than that. Like it really is just CSS. So you could potentially say, yeah, let's try that. Weight bold, and we want to keep the color green. Yeah, look at that. Pretty cool, eh? Okay, well, let's keep it simple and just go with the color. Let's give the user of our library the possibility to change the color of the whatever's being logged in the browser. Okay, so how does that work? We're giving the color private, yeah, okay. So we need to add it here. If I'm using the same kind of, let's use string templating here. Okay, I'm wondering if I should, let's see. I could probably do this right here, right? Message equals template string. We're basically just adding, well, okay, I don't need to do that. Oops, I don't think so anyways. let's just do it that way. We're just adding the, what was it again? Percentage sign C, a space, plus message, right? That'll do. I think that'll work for what we're trying to do. I'll make that plus. Okay, so like that, then of course we need to actually pass in our CSS string here, which we're gonna do color, and then I can use this color. Something like that should work, I think. Pretty confident. We'll find out. All right, let's save that. Okay, so that's cool. We've got the possibility set a log level and a color. All right, now what we need to do, of course, is start using it. So let's, for testing purposes, let's just start by adding to the root of our app, the very first component we have, the app component, just a, all right, well, first we need to import it, to inject it. So private logger of type logger service, yes, cool. And we're going to say logger dot, let's make it a warning level. I forgot the this is TypeScript, right? Logger warn, our message. Our message is just going to be, hey, you made it. Careful not to break anything. Sounds like a warning. Not to break anything. Okay. There we go. All right. Okay. And this is where we run into problems. This constructor was not compatible with dependency injection. The constructor was not compatible with dependency injection. Okay. So why? Why is it not compatible? Sometimes, let's just reload. Like I said, sometimes when you play with modules and all that stuff, the compiler kind of breaks, and it's a good idea to kind of restart it. And let's see what if we're still getting the same errors. Okay, we're still getting the same error. This constructor was not compatible with dependency injection. It's not very specific in terms of what the error is, but I know what the error is. Let me just go back to our library. Anyways, I think I know what the error is, right? So we're using provided in root, which is fine, right? But our logger service requires two dependencies. It requires a log level. It requires a color. Now, log level is just this enum here. Color is a string. The thing is how, when the Angular's dependency injector, when it sees that it needs to provide the logger service for our app component here, how does it know? Where does it get logger services dependencies, right? It needs to inject two things in the constructor when it constructs it. But, there's no information about that anywhere for it to know what to do. So this is where we realize that we cannot use provided in root. We need something a bit more custom. because of the configuration we need to pass into our service. So that's fine. There's no worries. Let's go to our app module. And we're going to, what do we have here? Declarations, imports. We need to add a providers array. This is the place where you would normally add your services. So that's what we're going to do. So we need to provide our logger service. And auto import. Great. So that's good. Oop. Okay. Still not working because although we're providing a logger service, we're not saying how, we're not telling the dependency injector how to, where to get the information for whatever logger service needs. And whatever service logger service needs is a log level and a color. So let's give it that. And in order to do that, if it was a simple class, right, as it often is, then it wouldn't be a problem because it would be able to look up, if for instance, log level was a service. Let's imagine for an instant that it would be a service. We would give it an injectable, and then we do, export class log level. Right, and then the Angular dependency injection system would know what to do when it gets to that here. But this is an enum, which is a TypeScript construct. Doesn't really exist in JavaScript. And here it's a string, so that wouldn't work either. So what do we do? All right, here's another thing you might learn in this tutorial that you did not know. And that is how to make custom dependency injection tokens. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. Let's see. We need a log level. Let's call it, let's just call it log level token. Right? And the way to do this is to, what's it called? Injection token, injection token. We create a new injection token, give it a name, a string, that is a name, so we'll just call it log level. And I think we can also type this. It represents a log level. Like that, does that work? Yes. Great. So now we've got our injection token for our log level here. And we need another one for color. So let's call it color token. This will return a string. And let's just call it color. Color. All right, so what do we do with those? How does that work? Let's go back to our app module here. What we need is to tell the DI system that whenever it comes across a token called logger or log level token, it should, actually it's an object here. All right. So log level token. Right. I need to say provide, I think, or provide. I think it's provide. Provide and then use. Right. Use, what are we? Okay, so there's use class, use existing, use factory, use value. In this case, what we're passing in is a log level. Log level is an enum, so really it's just a number. So use value will do just fine. Use value, and okay, so this is where we basically get to configure our service. So we get to tell Angular, you know what? I want to log everything that is, well, I want to log everything. Let's start with that. Log level dot, okay, let's import it. Log level dot info is our highest log level. There you go. By the way, you may not know this, but you might be used to when you're declaring providers here in this array, just putting this class name, and that's perfectly fine. That's kind of a shortcut. What Angular actually sees or does when you do this is that, right? This is just putting logger service is the equivalent of doing this. And this might help you understand what we're doing here. There we go. Right. So basically, when it sees only a class name, it treats it the same way as if we were declaring it that way. It's saying, all right, whenever I see the token name logger service, it uses the class name as the token name, I need to inject a logger service, right? So what we're doing here is we're basically saying, all right, whenever you see a log level token, now because it's not a class, it can't use a class name. That's why we had to define it ourselves, actually making an injection token, custom one. And we're passing not a class, but a value in this case. Okay. Hope this helps clarify things a little bit. And we're going to have to do the same thing with, what was the other one? Color token, right? Color token, we're using a value again, it's a string, and we can say, all right, I want everything to be green, all my logs to be green. All right, so this should do the trick, but we're still having some problems here. So I might have screwed up something. Let's see. We've got injectable, private log level, private color string. Okay. And we are importing logger service. Logger.warn. Might just be a, let's try reloading it here. And let's hope it goes away, or that we at least get an error that's a bit more helpful. All right, so we still have those errors. This constructor was not compatible with dependency injection. Which one though? We don't know. That's awesome. Unhandled promise rejection. This constructor was not compatible with dependency zone, root, task, promise, then, blah, 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 blah. Angular module, blah, 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 bundle core, logger service factory, as factory, hydrate gate. Yeah. Has to do with the logger service, that's for sure. Let's take a look at it again. Log level token, export class logger service. I'm using injectable. Log level, private color. Oh, yes. All right, so another thing you need to remember to do, which I forgot, is that whenever you start using those custom tokens, right? So it's great. We did the right thing here, basically in our module, saying, hey, DI system, whenever you come up on log level token, this is what I need you to inject. Whenever you come up on color token, this is what I need you to inject. So that's cool. The thing is, well, that we need to, because right now it's not coming up on a log level token. It's coming up on the log level, but it doesn't recognize that. So what we need to do is this, add inject we're injecting a log level token. Here we go. Just import that. That's part of the core. Okay, and same thing here. We're basically saying this is going to be a color token. And here we go. Hey, look at that. Hey, I made wet. I made it. Careful not to break anything. Yeah, I did, but I fixed it. So there. Okay, so that's cool. And now this is a warn level. This is a warn level message, right? And it's showing up because obviously right now we've configured our thing to log everything that's info or lower. What if we were to do warn? What would you expect? Would you still expect our message to show up? Yes, right? And it does because it's a warn level message, and we're doing warn level as, you know, whenever we're setting here, we're saying show this level and lower. Now, if we were to set it to error, it disappears. So our logger service works perfectly. That's great. That's awesome. All right, let's stretch that a little bit too. Let's have some fun with this. We'll make this info again, and let's go in each of those feature modules. Let's go in the service, right? Remember how it logged every time we go, right? Contact service instance created, customer service instance created. So let's change that to use, instead of console, let's change that to use our super duper logger service. Logger service. Need to import that. It doesn't recognize. Okay, there we go. And we just change this to logger. Oops. This dot logger dot. All right, so let's make the contact an error. All right, it's not really an error, but just for demonstration purposes, let's make it an error. Okay, and then let's do the same thing for customers. Import, inject our logger service, import it, and now we change this to logger dot, let's make this one just an info. And finally, what's the last one? Items. Items, let's do the same thing. Let's give it our logger service. Okay. So we've got an error. We have a info. Let's make this a warn. Logger dot warn. There we go. Okay. I think that's correct. Let's try that again. Let's remove this here and just go like that. Clear this up. Perfect. So contact service instance created. Contact, as we remember, is an error. Everything's green though, because we set it that way. Items is a warn, and customers is info. Now they all show up because we set it to log level info, and so including our warning at the beginning. Now if we wanted to, we could make it error again. Now we'd expect only one of those to show up, and I think it was customers? No, contacts? Yes, contacts was the only error. If I go to items, customers, we were already there. So yeah, everything seems to work exactly as intended. Yay for us. Now, How does the module with providers interface come into play? Well, let me show you. Let me show you one of the use cases for it. Right now, of course, this is like a little library that we've done for ourselves. We're intimate with the, its inner workings. We know it well, we designed it. But what if we wanted to make it public? What if we wanted to share it with the rest of our organization, or even put it like as an open source thing on NPM for other people to use? Well, they would need to understand to use it properly, right? In their app module. Well, they would need to know about the log level token. They would need to know about the color token. And obviously they need to know about the logger service and the log level error. And so that's, these three things. And it's a pretty simple logger, right? Normally you would have more configuration options than just, a logger level and a color. But let's keep it simple for now. So potentially you can imagine that you'd end up with several tokens, maybe other classes, different things that you need to configure it properly. So what we want is to have a better API, a better public API for our library. We don't want to expose all that stuff, and we don't want people to have to, add to their providers array a bunch of things in order to use our library. We want to simplify that a little bit, make it a little cleaner. So how do we do that? Well, wouldn't it be great if we could just give them a module that has everything it needs ahead of time, so they don't have to do all of that stuff. Now, our problem is we can't really do that because we don't know what they're going to want in terms of log level and color. We need to, give them the possibility of configuring the log service. So how do we do that? Oh, let's do it, and you'll see. Okay, I'm just going to close this here. We don't really need this for now. Let's go back to our logger service. Actually, logger folder, and we're going to add a new file. We're going to call it logger module.ts. All right, let's see if I remember how to make a module from scratch. Not having the CLI as a ng module. Yep, okay. So that's a decorator. Cool. And we can make a class. And that's going to be our logger module class. And okay, so this is where, remember at the beginning I was talking about, the for root, for child static functions that you've seen, no doubt, in libraries. So that's what we're doing here. Now, the for root name and the for child name, they're just kind of conventions that were started by the I think the Angular team itself, right, with the router module. But we don't need to call our static function that way. So for our purposes, let's just call it configure. Although it's it's not a bad idea to stick with conventions, but the thing is, if you're going to have a for root, well, okay, you know what? Let's do that. Let's do for root, right? That's always a good thing to stick with convention. So static for root, and what are we configuring here? Well, we know that we need a log level, right? Let's type log level. Let's import that. Okay. And we know that we need a color. So color of type string. Now, this function is going to return. What's it going to return? What do you think? It's going to return module with providers. Ta-da! Did it import it? Yes. Good. we can just is it the right one? Yeah, okay, it is. Good. All right, so if we remember, it's just a simple object with an ng module and a providers array. So let's give it that. It returns ng module, and that is the logger module itself. Right, and I think we need to type this. Yes. Okay, that's why it was complaining. Or also because I wasn't returning anything, but okay. So what was the other thing? Providers. We need to give an array of providers. Now this isn't going to be hard. We know exactly what we need to provide. This is what we need to provide. Well, we can actually just remove this, copy it inside our module. Whoops. And right, complaining now it's not, doesn't have what it needs to use the logger services that we've injected everywhere. Well, we're going to fix that. Okay, let's just save that here. There we go. Logger service. Let's just, okay, we also need the token. We also need the color token. All right, so now we're using all that stuff, but internally, so our library knows about those tokens. The outside world won't need to. And that's kind of the idea, right? We're trying to provide a better API. Okay, so we're not using log level, right? We need to pass that in now. Use value. Just use whatever you're going to be passing in. And the same thing for color. We're passing in color. There we go. Good. Step in the right direction. Now, why is this still not working? Do you have any idea? What's it saying, right? Still not working with the log service. No provider for logger service. True. Well, we do have one in our logger module, but app module doesn't know about the logger module. So that's what we need to do. We need to tell it about it. So logger module. Port that in here, please. And come on. No. If I do this, not even. All right, let's reload here, see if that helps. Or if I forgot something else. Which, you know, is highly likely. Oh, I did, of course. Of course. Can you see what I forgot? We don't need this stuff anymore. Probably have the same error. Yeah, okay. So the reason why this isn't working, it's because we're passing in the app, the logger module, right? But it's not configured yet. To configure it, we need to do this. That's how we pass in our configuration, right? So for root, why is it saying expected? Okay, expected 2 arguments. Cool. The first one is our log level. So let's just make it info for now. And color, let's make it different. Let's make it, I don't know, purple. Yay! Hey, you made it. Careful not to break anything. Contact service instance created. Items created. Customers created. Great. And look at the API now. Much better than having, you know, to import to provide the logger service, the logger level token, the log level token, the color token. All we need to do now is for root, pass in whatever configuration we want, and boom, we're done. Pretty cool. Now, what if, and that's, you know, that's often something that you would want. What if, let's say, our app is now in production. So We just want to, log errors to the console, nothing else. But let's imagine for an instant that there's a nasty bug that was reported. A few users reported it. You tried to find it, to find the root cause. You tried debugging locally on your machine, and you just can't find it, right? You need more data. You need more information. You need to know what's going on in production. Why are those users getting that problem and you're not getting it on your machine? So you might want more log information than just the errors. So how do you do that? Well, if it's a big app you're working on, you probably don't want to change the log level for the entire application. And now you're going to get bombarded with like way too much stuff, and it could affect performance and, security wise, it might expose some things to the user, or, that you'd rather he not get easy access to. So what you would really want is, since it's a problem in the contact feature, what you would want is to only increase the log level for the contact feature, but not for the rest of the app. Can you do that? Yes, you can. Let's see. Our contact feature as its own module. See what happens if we try to import the... Well, actually, let's choose one that would best showcase, right? So this is already just using error. Let's go with customers. I think customers is an info level. Yeah, perfect. So let's do customers. Customers, let's import our logger module. And oh, right, there you go. That's why. Okay, so here's a reason why in this particular case, we will want to change that for root name for our static function, because in our particular case, we want our library to be usable at different levels and have different instances of our services. I apologize. Yeah, so we want different instances of our service to be available at different, places in the app. So calling this for root is misleading, right? It makes you think that you're only supposed to use it at the root level, which is not true in the case of our library. Sometimes, though, that is the case, and that's why that name is used. When you see libraries that are using for root and for child, you should only use for root at the root of your application and for child elsewhere, usually. All right, so in our case, let's go change that. Let's go to our logo module, static for root. Does F2 work here? I think so. Cool. So let's go with my initial idea, which is to, let's just call it config, I guess. We should have changed it here. No, I guess it didn't work. Okay. So let's change it. Oh, look at what it did. That's weird. Interesting glitch. Okay, so and we can config. Actually, we need to import it. All right, and here we're saying, all right, in the app right now, we've got a log level of error, but for this particular feature, we want a log level of info. And you know what? We've got purple everywhere else, but for this particular feature, we want to log in, I don't know, yellow. Ugh, that's going to be ugly. I can't read anything. Let's make it red, I guess. No, then we get confused. Brown? Yeah, okay, sure. And as we can see, it works, right? So let's just reload it though and start from another one. Let me clear this just to make it really. All right, so contact service instance created, because that one is actually an error. Remember, that's what we put. It's log level error here. And that's what we have at the root of our application in terms of settings. Error in purple. This is an error. It's in purple. Good. If we were to go to items, we wouldn't see anything, because items, if we remember, is a warning. And so is the app component at the root. And that's not showing. Remember that, hey, you made it, don't break anything. That's not showing up because we have set the level to error. Now, if I go to customers, shows up, even though it's not an error. It's an info level, but we imported another instance of our service in that specific feature, and we said we want to see it in brown, and we want to have info. So there you have it, friends. I hope this was interesting to you. We ended up learning a few things, how to implement a very simple logger service. If you're thinking of actually implementing something for real in your application, you might want to look at existing libraries that might, do what you want to do, and you won't need to implement it, or you could do it yourself, but you want to give it some thought. That's a very, very simple thing that we did here. You probably want something that's a bit more robust, a bit with more features, but still, it's a good start. It's a good start, as a base. You could get inspired by what we did, and we ended up learning about ModuleWithProviders, which is often returned, from the static for root or for child functions on library modules, and that's what we did, right? And we also showed through this that if you're using an implementation like we did, and you're importing the module at the root, and again at a child level, you're going to get different instances. And in our case, that's exactly what we wanted. But sometimes that is not the behavior that you want. You want your service that's wrapped in your library to be a singleton. And that's another one of the use cases of that famous ModuleWithProviders and for root, for child thing. I'm not going to go into that right now, but I might make another video that explains how to use that pattern and why to use it to have services be singleton throughout the app. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned a thing or two. Another thing you might want to look into, if this was kind of foreign to you, or you didn't really get what was going on there, is the use of tokens, custom tokens for the dependency injection system in Angular. It's a powerful tool that allows you to do a lot of interesting things. And I know from experience that a lot of Angular devs don't really know about them all that much. So something to look at the documentation too, to get a bit more details on that. All right, I'm going to shut up now. That's it for me. I hope you have a great day or evening. Let me know what you thought. What you're thinking about this content in the comments. If you have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter at snowfrogdev, or in the comments as well. I'm going to try to take a look pretty regularly. All right, bye-bye.